Hello, welcome to our book review channel. This is yet another book review episode. I'm glad that you're here with us today. Thank you for attending. Thank you for subscribing. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. It goes a long way to help our channel. Before we talk about the author and the book, we'll talk about the channel itself. As I've said in the previous videos, the links of which are all given below, and you can go see that and give me your comments on what you think of the review. The channel itself talks about books. We review all kinds of books. The previous two videos talked about a history book, nonfiction, and also a book about the universe, also nonfiction. And this time we are going to completely change the genre and then go and review a thriller. Usually, when we review the books, we have a few principles. Number one, we don't give any spoilers for a detective or a suspense story mainly. Second, we don't give a large excerpts from the book because the author owns the copyright and it's not fair for us to reveal full details. And finally, we rate the book in two different ways. One is rating by category, which is a reading recommendation, and the categories will be this way. I'll put them up. Please take a look at it. These are the categories by which this book and every other book that we review will be judged. And towards the end of the video, you will know what category this book belongs to. In addition, we also do a traditional rating, a mark out of 10. So this book could be a 5 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, depending on the review and the details that we are going to review. Having said that, let's dive into the author. The author is William G. Tapley. Let's look very briefly at the author's life. He was born, raised, and lived all his life in New England, USA, and he did post-graduation in Harvard University in teaching. And then he worked as a teacher all his life, as a high school teacher as well as a college professor. He met his wife-to-be in a writers' conference. She is also an author. And then he married her, and he has 5 children. He passed away in 2009. And the book that we are going to review was written towards the end of his life. It was the last book that he wrote, and it was published in 2011 posthumously. The book that we will be reviewing today is a book by a new author for me, William G. Tapley. May not be new for you guys, and it's a thriller. And we are going to see in the rest of this review a little bit about the plot and also how I rate the book, what I liked, what I did not like, and hopefully this will be useful to you if you are trying to select a book to read. Then let's get on with the review. The thing that impressed me about this book is that how tightly it's plotted. I actually read through the book, and at the end of it, I felt that it was very beautifully plotted. There is no extra scene that's not relevant to the main story or to explain why the characters behave the way they behave. And at the end of it, all loose ends were tied up, and you know why things happen, and even when there is a suspense, it's revealed. So it's tightly plotted as far as I'm concerned. And a little bit about my reading habits. I do not read. I read the blurb, of course, but I do not read the reviews of a book before I read the book because I want it to be my impressions and not what other people told me about the book. So that gives me more satisfaction. And after I read the book, for this video, I was doing a research, and of course, I had to go back and see what other people are saying. And one of the comments surprised me. They said that this book, which he had written last, as I told you, is not been as tightly plotted as some of his other books. So it makes me wonder how the other books are. And that is something that I have not read. This is my first book, so I cannot comment on that. So if this is something with loose ends, then I don't know what the other books are like. Let's look at the story, but only in broad strokes, only at a high level. Like I said, I'm not going to give major extracts from the book. So let's talk about the story so that you understand what the book is about, and then you can make up your mind to buy and read the book or not, depending on what you feel after watching this review. The main story starts with two people meeting. One of them is Thomas Larrigan, who is a Massachusetts judge and is a celebrated war hero. He was in serving U.S. in Vietnam, and he actually lost an eye in the war because of war wound, and then he was wearing an eye patch. And he was very widely respected, and he has never put a foot bad in his lawyer career and the judge career after that, and the aide to the President of the United States. And the meeting has been prompted by one thing and one thing only. The president has had some political defeats and his popularity is sinking. His opinion polls are not looking good. And because a presidential re-election is coming in a few months, he knows he has to do something to shore up the popularity if he even hopes to win the re-election. And when he hears that a Supreme Court judge is retiring, he thinks that he has found his perfect answer. He thinks of his golf buddy, Thomas Larrigan, who's a Massachusetts judge, as we said. He has an impeccable record. He is well liked, he is handsome, he is a committed family man, and he served the country in the war in Vietnam and even lost an eye in the war and has to wear an eye patch. And he has never put a foot wrong in his judge career so far in the Massachusetts court. So he thinks that that would actually be the best move for him to regain his popularity. And so he wants to appoint Thomas Larrigan for that post. But he sends his chief aide called Pat Brody to find out if Thomas Larrigan is interested, and if offered the nomination, will he accept? So Thomas Larrigan is more than delighted and says that yes, he would accept if it was offered to him. And Pat Brody unofficially also tells him that even though there is a short list that the president has to do, the president is keen on making sure that he wins the post, and that he would do everything he can to influence that decision. So Thomas Larrigan is delighted. And after the meeting is over, Thomas Larrigan goes back, still happy, and starts thinking about what, if anything, can kill his chances of being nominated to the Supreme Court. And he can think of only one, and it's a person. It's a person called Bunny, whose last known whereabouts were in Florida. And he thinks that he needs to take care of that loose thread hanging over him. So he decides to call his buddy Eddie Moran. Eddie Moran, who was also in the Vietnam War, he was reporting up to Thomas Larrigan. And after the war, when they came back, he became a professional hitman with amazing investigative skills. So Thomas Larrigan calls Eddie Moran and says that he has been offered the Supreme Court judge post, and that's his life's ambition, and he's worried about the loose thread Bunny. So Thomas Larrigan tells Ed Moran, there is a loose thread in our life, which is Bunny. You know her too. So please find and make sure that she does not torpedo my chances of becoming a Supreme Court judge. She has also got some photographs which could be embarrassing if this is known outside. So please get that back as well. So Eddie Moran accepts it, goes to Florida, manages to find where Bunny lives, and accidentally meets Bunny, and then gains access to her house. And when Bunny is away, he searches the entire house and he finds the photographs, but they are covered in a shoebox that's layered with the dust, so he knows that she has not even looked at it in ages. And so he decides to leave them in place, which turns out to be a big mistake. And he comes back and tells Thomas Larrigan that um, don't worry about Bunny. She is no intention of raking up the past, and she is living her own life. So the photographs, if I brought back, it would have caused more suspicion than it would solve it. And this is the end of the story. Thomas Larrigan is uncomfortable, but he accepts Eddie Moran's advice and says, yeah, fine, so I can go ahead. And the president goes ahead and announces the shortlist for the Supreme Court judge post, including Thomas Larrigan in it. And because he wants to gain some momentum before the appointment itself for himself. And then when Bunny sees this, she realizes what's going on, and that meeting with Eddie Moran was not an accident. So she writes a letter to him saying that, you know, give me some money, I think $40,000, and then I will stay quiet for life. If not, it'll turn out to be bad. So this yarn, which they thought they'd taken care of, starts to unravel. And that's a problem for Thomas Larrigan. So he calls Eddie Moran again and says, go back to Florida and take care of this time and get the pictures. So, and Ed Moran goes back to Florida. But Eddie Moran is again unsuccessful. When he goes to find Bunny, he finds that she has disappeared with the photographs. And not giving up, he tracks her down and then finds her and takes care of her. And when he searches the motel where she's staying, he doesn't find the pictures at all, not even one picture. What happened to them? And we will know that a little bit later. The story now shifts to a girl called Carol Ann Chang, who, out of a heroic act, has got herself splashed onto the front page of newspapers, which is the last thing that she wanted. And her face is very clearly visible, and her name has been given, and her address has been given in the pictures because she is a hero. And actually, there is another important character called Simone. She is living in a secluded cottage, and when she sees the picture of Carol Ann Chang on the newspapers, she has an inclination that that could be her birth daughter called May Ann. Why? We will see in a little bit. And then she writes a letter to her saying that she would like to meet her. And that's made even more urgent because she knows that she has only a few months, if that, to live, because she's suffering from multiple sclerosis and there is no cure, and this disease is progressing rapidly. She lives in a cottage, like I said, and she is being helped by another younger blonde lady called Jill. And Jill and Simone seem to be friends and also lovers. When she writes a note, there is no response at all. So she's in despair. And then she gets another idea that she wants to write her story, autobiography, in a book. And she's looking for a ghostwriter because she doesn't have writing skills. She was a famous actress, not a mainstream actress, but a side actress, very pretty, and has also done in some porn movies in the past. So she thinks that there could be a market for such a book. And moreover, if her daughter reads it, then she will understand a lot of things that she wanted to tell her directly. And so she decides to write the book, and she contacts her agent when she was in Hollywood. And that guy sends a person called Mac who makes his living as a ghostwriter. Mac has his own backstory, and he's got a daughter, Kelly. His wife actually went and committed suicide, and both of them are feeling guilty. But we'll skip all that and go back to the main story. When Bunny was being taken care of, she actually utters a name that sounds like Simone, and then Eddie Moran figures out that Simone is the person that she was trying to tell him later. And so he goes and finds Simone, and he knows that she's sitting in a secluded cottage, and then he actually surveils the house from a distance with a binocular and everything. He has got those kind of skills, and he realizes that these two people are living kind of in a secluded spot with no neighbors anywhere nearby. And he knows that Jill leaves the house for an hour and a half at a time by watching them several days. And he says that this is the time to take care of the new loose end that has come up, which is Simone. In the meanwhile, Mac meets Simone, watched by Eddie Moran, and then she actually, over a period of time, records her life story in cassettes and then hands over the cassettes and the photographs, except one. Mac has not listened to any of the cassettes. Let's follow the other strand. Carol Ann Chang was named Janet Church before by her parents, and she was in the police, and she actually got a very big drug lord captured and in jail for a very long time. But she knows that he has influence, and then he will try to take revenge on her. So she knows that she cannot stay in the police department. So she changes her name to Carol Ann Chang through a police contact, and then goes away. She could have done an office job, but her heart is in security related operations. So she actually joins a private security far away, and she's living as Caroline Chang. She knows that that needs to end because her name has been splashed in the newspaper, which the drug lord would have also seen. So he would know where she lives now and what her new name is. So she makes another run. She gets another identity called Karen from the same source that gave her the previous identity, and she decides to hide out by visiting Simone, even though she hasn't responded by letters to Simone saying that she's coming. She decides to go and see her because it's an out of the way place, and then she can have a new identity. She can live fearlessly from the drug lord. She knows that the drug lord will target her because there has been an assassination attempt when she was Caroline Chang, and she survived it through vigilance. So she decides to come and see Simone, but by the time she reaches, it's too late. Simone and Jill are both not available, and she can't talk to them, but she meets Mac and goes with him to his house to stay, and they both seem to like each other. She finds that the person who gave her identity was tortured and killed, and she knows who was behind that. And she also knows that the new identity and the new car that she got are both not safe anymore because the torture would have produced results, and the drug lord now knows what her new identity is. So she has to do one more change and one more change of location, and she has to leave Mac and his daughter Kelly and then leave, which she reluctantly knows that is a must to do. And the story goes on like this. So when things get unraveled, now Ed Moran has been captured by a mysterious Mr. White and Mr. Black in a dark room. They blindfold him first and then put the light on and tie him down and then interrogate him. Because Eddie Moran's main objective is to live further, he reveals everything, the complete plot and what he did and so far and why he did it, etc. And that news reaches Pat Brody. Pat Brody knows now that Thomas Larrigan is not the right person who can take the Supreme Court judge post because of his past, which will come out somehow or the other. But since the president had already made an announcement, his exposure or even withdrawal will cause a huge problem for the president. So he says that, okay, now Thomas Larrigan cannot be withdrawn, and therefore, whatever solution we arrive for Thomas Larrigan, the loose ends needs to be taken care of so that this does not become an embarrassment to the president. And the story goes on in those. I cannot reveal anymore. Ultimately, uh, Pat Brody takes care of the issue of Thomas Larrigan. It takes care of the issue of the other loose threads have already been taken care of by others. But he finds that a couple of things he cannot resolve because they've gone out of control due to very careful planning by the victims. Like I said, I don't want to give up any spoilers, and so he comes to an agreement with the remaining people that he will delay the book, for example, until after the presidential election, when it does not matter anymore. He comes to an agreement with the people that he could not take care of. He solves also Janet Church's problem one way or the other, and the story ends happily for some, unhappily for some others. So sorry that I cannot give you more information than this, and this is an excellent plot. Remember what I said in the beginning of the review of this book? Nothing seems to be what it is by the time you finish reading the book. So let's talk about some of the aspects. Is Thomas Larrigan committed family man? No. Is he a good person? No. Did he lose his eye in the war? No. And the reality is much more shocking. We won't go into that because it's not relevant to the story. And therefore, his attempt to keep things closed proved to be his undoing. And so the book is that way very well plotted. The impression that you gain in the beginning is not what the reality is. So now we are going to talk about rating the category of this book, and I'll put up the categories once again. Take a look at it. Which category do you think that I will put in this book? I will categorize it as category 2, and please read this book with a priority when you next can, because it's a very good book. It keeps the suspense. It's very well written, and the story does not even sag a little bit until the end. It's an excellently written book. I'm glad that I picked up this book to read. I would give it a 7 out of 10 for this book because of the same reasons that we discussed. Thank you once again for watching this video. Thank you once again if you have subscribed. If you have not subscribed, can I ask you to please press that subscribe button and the like button? It goes a long way to help us. And I will see you very soon in the next book review shortly. Thank you.